question comes from Magnus. He says, last week I talked about the secondary being bad. This week again, they're bad. Is it the scheme or players' fault? I think it's a mixture of execution and scheme. The scheme, Matt Burke needs to do a better job of recognizing the personnel on this football team. Clearly, zone coverage is not a strength of this football team. When you look at the corners, and you hear the reason why Vance Joseph and Chris Greer drafted some of these guys and brought some of these guys here is because they were long, big man press corners, and we're seeing a lot of zone coverage with these guys. I have no idea why we're playing so far off of these receivers. I thought the game plan on defense was abysmal for the Jets game. I don't understand why we didn't just line up man to man and really make it hard for Josh McCown to throw in some of those windows. Again, when you look back some of those throws, a lot of his throws were late. The timing was terrible on the throws, and the ball placement and accuracy was awful. If we had tighter coverage and we played a man, I feel like some of those balls would either been tipped up in the air, he wouldn't have thrown them, or they would have been interceptions. So, and obviously he would have had to held onto the ball longer, and our pass rush would have got after him. And again, it wasn't all our defense. They had a really good. People forget first 3 drives of the Jets. We dominated them. Now, yeah, we should have dominated their offense the entire game. But when you're on the road and you just straight, we dominated them for the first 3 drives. Obviously, one of them was a missed field goal. But for the most part, our defense was playing very, very well. And they were giving our offense a very good field position. So, especially the first drive of the entire football game, we dominated them. Obviously, we ended it off on a sack, and it was like a 3rd and 18. So, it was more, I think it had more to do with the offense. I mean, our defense is on the field way too long. And again, if we got any kind of lead at any point in time in that game, I think we would have destroyed them. But again, I think it had a mixture to do with the game plan I thought was terrible, and the execution was also terrible by our secondary. But I don't think this is going to be a theme throughout the rest of the season. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, it was just bad execution, bad game plan. Our defense never got to play with the lead, which I think is how this defense is built for the most part because of the front seven. Because the front seven is so stout and strong that if we got a lead and we made the Jets pass, it would have been a long day for them, and we would have forced a lot of turnovers. So it had a lot to do with both sides of the football this game, obviously. I mean, the offense, I thought, if there's any positional group to blame for this, it's definitely the offense. They just had a terrible, terrible, terrible game. And if this offense again is way too talented to score 20 points, to score 6 points against the Jets, that's unacceptable. So I think it had a mixture to do with both sides of the football. In football things go hand in hand. It is what it is. But yes, the execution on defense was terrible. The secondary did not play well, and the game plan for the defense was terrible. This question comes from Andrew Cantor. He says, if you look around the NFL, many teams lost to the underdog team. Example, Pittsburgh, Chicago won. Was Finn's Jets a great example of this? Not only that, but obviously if you look at the Raiders, and the fact that Derek Carr, I think, only had like 50-something yards in the fourth quarter passing, that's worse than what we did. And if you look at the Raiders' talent on their offense, obviously that is unacceptable. So, it was a weird day. Not only those games, there's many other games that were upsets. And it was a weird day. It was definitely a weird day of football. It goes to show you, man, the NFL, any given Sunday, anything can happen. And that's been true for many years now. I mean, there's always a great example every year of a great team losing to an inferior team. I mean, again, another great example of that is Buffalo blowing out Denver. I mean, Denver was the hottest football team going into this week, and they lost. Same thing with the Raiders. I mean, they were on a hot streak like no other, and they go into Washington, and it was just weird. And a common theme throughout is all of these teams lost on the road. So, going on the road, no matter what team you're playing, is a difficult task, especially since we're flying around the country from California back to New York. Now we're going to London. It's tough, man. So Not to make excuses for the performance, because the performance was absolutely god awful. It burns your eyes to watch that kind of a football game, knowing the talent that's on the football field. And the players said it the best. They understand what they have in the locker room, and they understand what they did on Sunday was not a good example of that. So that's a good sign if you're a Dolphins fan. And another thing I think Dolphins fans can take away from this week is you can have a really good football team and then do something like this. You don't panic right after that. I mean, there have been some really good football teams that have just taken it a bad loss. I mean, when you look at the Patriots and Chiefs, obviously I'm not comparing the Jets and Chiefs. I mean, that would be just ridiculous and stupid. But your good teams lose. It happens, and they lose by a lot sometimes. I think what Dolphins fans can take away from this is not to panic. You guys, we have a really good football team. At least in my opinion, I think it's a very talented team. And I don't think we're going to see another performance like this for the rest of the year. I truly do believe that. So it is what it is. If anything you guys can take away from this is you're not the only one. You're not the only football team that Sunday to take a weird loss. So I think that's the best thing you can take away from that. This question comes from Cypher. He says, do you think our offensive woes were the result of bad play calling or lack of execution? It was a mixture of both. Adam has to realize if something's not working, you got to do something different. You got to make adjustments to what they're trying to do to you. I thought we tried to run the football and we tried to stick with the game plan for too long. I thought Adam Gase should have pulled away from it a little bit earlier than he did. And obviously, eventually he did. Obviously, the most drastic game plan change and the most drastic adjustment only came until halftime. After 3 drives of the football game, your defense is obviously doing their job and getting the opponent off the football field, especially the first drive of the game when you have ridiculously good field position for the first drive on the road. You need to take advantage of those situations. If something's not working, as a head coach, you have to obviously make adjustments to that and try something else. Try to spark the offense. I felt like he tried to force the run for too long. It wasn't working. We were getting down in distance way too often. Every outside run we ran under center was like a loss of 5 yards because of the penetration in the interior of the offensive line. And we just needed to get away from that earlier. And obviously the calls that he played were executed so poorly that we were getting, 8 to 5 yard losses on a running play. Not only that, but obviously the penalty yards in that first half was abysmal and absolutely unacceptable from an execution standpoint. So not only do I think it was do I think it was a play calling, I thought he should have got away from some of that earlier than he did. I think execution was an issue too. And what I mean by that, again, is you got to recognize your football team. It's just not working. You have to get away from it. If it's not working, it's not working. Stop trying to bang your head against the wall and just try to go around the wall. Just stop. If it's not working, it's not working. I think you just needed to get away from it earlier. And again, execution was super poor. It was just awful all day long. And again, the penalty yard, all that stuff. But I think it was a mixture of both. And anytime you lose like this, it's a mixture of both. But especially against a bad football team, I just think he needed to get away from it just a little bit earlier. But again, that's no excuse for the players to execute the way they did. This question comes from D'Anthony. He says, what are your thoughts on Julius Thomas being irrelevant in the passing game? It's been pretty... I think it wasn't just Julius Thomas. I think the game that I was most disappointed in Julius Thomas was week 1 because of the red zone opportunities that were there. And again, that wasn't his fault. Some of the play calls just weren't to him. And hopefully we see more of that from Adam Gase. I have no idea why we didn't see that in week 1. Hopefully we see that in the future, and I'm sure we will. So most of it's not on Julius Thomas. When you look at that game, especially in that first half, the offense just could not get in a rhythm. It was abysmal. We were constantly getting down in distance. Every time we ran the football, my head wanted to explode. It was terrible. The play calling was obviously wonky at best. You can't run the football on first down, lose 5 yards, and then pat. I mean, it was just bad. The offense couldn't get in a rhythm. It was, again, because of play calling, because of execution, they just were not in a rhythm. And it wasn't just Julius Thomas who was disappointing in that first half. It was Jarvis Landry who was disappointing in that first half. It was Devontae Parker who was disappointing in that first half. We just didn't get off to a good enough of a start. I think if we got in a rhythm, and we got into situations where we could utilize Julius Thomas's talents, then it would be better. As of right now, obviously he's been a no-show. So has Anthony Fasano. The Titans in general have been pretty silent. Obviously, they're a very, very important piece to this offense. Julius Thomas had one third down drop where he probably should have caught it, but I thought the timing was a little off, and he got hit in the back as soon as the ball came to him. So not all of Julius Thomas's fault. Again, hopefully I know we will see more of him throughout the season as we get into more favorable positions, as the offense gets in more of a rhythm, and I would hope that we would see more of him in the red zone. So not only Julius Thomas, it wasn't just Julius Thomas, it was everybody on that offense. This question comes from No, This Is Patrick. Was our offense's performance Jay Cutler's fault? It had a lot to do with Jay Cutler. I don't know why he was so uncomfortable in the pocket. I don't know why I don't understand what the heck was going on with him. He really did not have a good performance. He did not see the field well. He missed people that were wide open. The ball placement accuracy was all over the place. I don't know, some of the decision making. I mean, he had people wide open and just missed them. That's the best way I can explain it. When you have a Jarvis Landry wide open in the middle of the football field, you got to make that throw. And some of it had to do with play calling. To put Jay Cutler in down and distance every single drive, that's asking a lot out of your quarterback, that's asking a lot of your offense. But he did not dictate the pace as well as he did last week. He did not manage the clock well. He did not communicate with the offense at all. The play clock seemed to be at zero almost every single play. And I don't think the crowd noise had anything to do with that. But it was a bad job by our entire offense. I don't think that this is going to be a common theme throughout the year. I don't think this is something to panic about. I don't think this is, it was one game. It's one game. We had one bad game. That's it. I don't think Jay Cutler is going to continue this play. Hopefully Adam Gase can watch the tape of this game and figure out what we need to do going forward. We're not going up against, the defense that we're about to play is abysmal at best. So it is what it is. I don't think this is something this is going to be a common theme, but there's some similarities to the first week to the second week. Jay Cutler, I don't know if it's rust or what the problem is, but he cannot miss wide open people the way he did in that game. He absolutely had something to do with the performance of the offense. He did not get the offense in a rhythm. There was a lot of just feeling down on ourselves, and a lot of that has to do with, if you make throws like that, it just feels like everything is going against you. He needs to step up and make some of those throws. He needs to see the field way, way better. I don't understand, on that throw to Jarvis Landry, who's wide open in the end zone, he was throwing a completely opposite route, which I have no idea why he was doing that. Hopefully we get more from Adam as the days go on. But yeah, Jay Cutler he was definitely a part of the reason why the offense did so bad. This question comes from Axel. He says, now we know what we're going to draft: first round cornerback and second round quarterback. I think it's a little too early. We've only played 2 games to, really go out on a limb here and say what we need. Obviously the quarterbacks haven't played up to their potential. I hope this doesn't continue. They're too talented for this to continue. I think Byron Maxwell has showed in the past, especially last year in the last 10 games of the season, how well he can play, and same thing with Xavier, and we've seen flashes as well. I don't think it's too early to start pushing the button, okay, we need this and this. But quarterback, in my opinion, since the quarterback draft, this upcoming draft, is going to be loaded with talent, and we have depth issues there. We obviously have quarterbacks that are older and have an injury history. So yeah, I think quarterback is a safe bet for this upcoming draft, because of the talent pool and because of the depth issues, and we can relieve some cap at that position if we draft a young guy. And I think it's a good idea for Adam Gase to draft somebody that he drafted and he can develop. So yeah, I think if anything's a safe bet at this point, I think even before the season, we knew that quarterback is a need in terms of depth, and to definitely relieve some of the cap. Question comes from Ronald. He says, how great did Werner look in coverage for an injured Maxwell? Nice long bomb for a touchdown. Yeah, Ronald, you're not wrong. And not to sound like I'm sugarcoating this and saying all the corners didn't play up to their potential. We should have played more man than we did zone. Whether you're playing zone or man, the talent level that we were going up against the Jets, receiver core the receiver core is probably, I could say without a shadow of a doubt, the worst in the NFL. And to have that kind of performance against a receiver core that is filled with it's bad. I mean, it's filled with mostly rookies and young players that are unproven talent in this league. That's saying a lot, man. Whatever the game plan is, whether you're playing zone or man, you can't, as a secondary, can't give up that big of a game to those players. And, the whole Alteron Werner thing, I think Cordrea Tankersley needs to be on the active roster. The preseason that he had was a tremendous one, to say the least. Out of the entire season, he's had the most productive. I mean, I know it's preseason, but he's looked like the best corner that we've had on the roster. So he needs to be activated. We need to give him a chance. And again, he's a man coverage corner. Most of these corners are man coverage corners. I would like to see more man coverage from these corners. That's something that Matt Burke needs to do. But again, whether you're playing zone or man, against a receiver core of that caliber, you should have success, and that we just didn't do that. Even though the game plan wasn't the greatest in the world, the corners definitely needed to execute the game plan better. All right, guys, that is going to be your fan Q&A for this week. I know today was a tough week for Dolphins fans and a tough Sunday for Dolphins fans. Not only losing to the Jets, which sucks always, but obviously losing to one of the worst teams in the National Football League is tough. But I think, again, to hit the panic button this early is a little insane. I think our team is super talented, and I don't think this is going to happen again. So that is going to be it, guys. I am Skagster283. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Please keep asking questions because of the podcast. And if I didn't get your questions in this fan Q&A, please listen to the podcast, because I am 100% sure you will be featured in that. So I'm Skagster283, and I will see you guys in the next one.